Hey guys, it's Charles Austin here with the International Wingfoiling Organization. And today we're going to be talking about the effects and essentially how to choose the right wing. So as you know, when you got into wingfoiling, you saw not only that there's so many different brands and models now, but there's also another element, different sizes. Just like for the foil and for the board, there's different size wings that you have to decide on when you're choosing what wing to buy and what wing to use on that day. So as you can see behind me, I got two other wings. Here in my hand, I got a 3.5 meter, I got a 4.5 meter, and I got a 6. And we're gonna do a little experiment of actually seeing what is the difference when using a wing of one size or another. So this is the smallest wing we're carrying. Right now, the wind is maybe around 10 to 14 knots. And I'm a rider that is, let's say when I'm wet, 180 pounds roughly, 175. So one thing to consider when you're choosing a wing is how big are you? How much do you actually weigh? A rider that is heavier is gonna want to opt in for a larger wing compared to a rider that is lighter who's gonna most likely want a smaller wing. There's a few reasons why also having a smaller wing or a bigger wing might be a benefit. Usually, if you're a smaller rider or a lighter rider, you're gonna prefer using a smaller wing because the wingspan is gonna be a bit more manageable. So right now you can see that when I'm holding this wing, I have a lot of clearance from above my head to down below on the sand. Once I start using a larger wing, that clearance will be reduced. So if I was a smaller rider, a kid or an individual that is 4 feet tall, I will have a benefit, let's say, of riding with a smaller wing. But these are not the only factors you can really consider when choosing a wing size. The first factor you're gonna wanna consider is what's the wind where you're at. That is sort of the starting point when selecting a wing. When you go on any website, you're always gonna see that each wing size carries with it a wind range. The wind range will vary from brand to brand, so it's always important to look into what wind range a specific brand is recommending for using. And as you can see behind me, the wind is picking up a little bit, that wing is moving around. So that's the first starting point. Once you know the wind range of what your spot is, then you can go into selecting the wing that you're gonna be using. So when you get lessons and you're with an instructor, the instructor will decide what wing you're gonna use for the day of that lesson. Generally speaking, people can go one of two ways about it. They can go to put you on a smaller wing so that you have a little bit less power, so it feels less aggressive, the whole sport, a little bit softer and more manageable, because once you have a larger wing, you're gonna be generating more power. And that might mean that it's gonna be pulling you a lot, which some people don't like. So the instructor and yourself are gonna have to find a balance between a wing that is manageable for you as well as sufficiently large to also generate you power or forward momentum when you're gonna be out there on the water. To show you the difference of the wing sizes, today we're gonna go out on the same size board, which is a 6'2", 130 liter board, which is considered a beginner board. And we're gonna try out different wings. We're gonna go from a 3.5 meter up to a 4.5 meter and then up to a 6. And we're gonna actually see what is the difference in terms of how much do I have to work the wing to get up and going, and if I can even get up and going. So we're doing this test without really knowing the final outcome. I do know what wing I might ride in this wind condition, and I do imagine that with a certain amount of work, I can maybe get up and foiling on any of these wings, but you'll see that you don't want to select a wing that's too small for the day for yourself, because you might have to work too much to get up and going, and then you might burn through all your energy just getting up on to foil. And then let's say when you're learning, if you choose a wing that's too small, you might never get onto foil and just be wondering, why am I not able to foil? And you might be thinking it's yourself when it actually might be partially because of the equipment selection to be specific. And then we're gonna go up to using a larger wing to see how little I might have to use the wing to get up and going, but also it might have the reverse effect of being too strong where I might be riding always overpowered, which is not comfortable either, because then you're sort of always fighting the gear to get to be riding, essentially. You're gonna get riding very easily, but when you're riding, you're always gonna feel like you're overpowered. Your arms are always gonna be extended. If ever there's a gust, it might pull you totally over, you might fall. There might be a lot of factors behind that. So essentially, you always wanna try to pick a wing that is plus or minus right for you for that day. Generally speaking, spots will require between 1 to 3 wings to be rideable all year round. Here in Cabarete, we have conditions from 8 knots all the way up to 30 knots. So if I only had a small wing, there might be many days where I won't be able to go out just because I don't have the right wing size. And that might be in combination as well with my board and my hydrofoil. So this is just one of, let's say, 3 elements that you have to consider in terms of equipment, which is your wing, your board, and your foil size. The mast length as well should be considered, and then your riding level, and that's just, to keep it simple, keep it to those 3. So today we're gonna be talking about selecting the right wing, and we're gonna give it a test out there on the water right now to see what the heck actually happens when you have a wing that's too small versus the right size wing versus a wing that's too big. So let me get my protective gear on and let's get out there in the water. All right, guys, so here we are in the water. We're gonna be trying the 3-5. And this is gonna be one of 3 wings that we're gonna be trying. This is the 3-5, we're gonna try the 4-5 and then the 6-0. As you can tell, the wind, some clouds just came in, so the wind is up and down. It's not perfect. This is a perfect actual time to try out and see the difference from lighter winds and how different wing sizes will affect my success on the water. And this is why it's important to pick the right wing size, because if you go too small, you might not even get foiling. If you go too big, you might be overpowered and not comfortable. In this case, I don't think we're gonna reach overpowered, but we're gonna at least see what the actual difference is. And here we are. I'm gonna be the guinea pig. Just get wet real quick. Got my helmet on, got my impact vest. Give it a shot. .5. Alrighty. Oh,
How was it?
it was all good. As you can see, when I first started, let me just turn around here. Didn't tie my leash belt on it correctly. When I first started, I really had to work hard to get up on foil, and it was just a whole workout. You can even tell I'm out of breath almost from pumping with my arms, realizing I was getting a little bit of momentum, and then starting to use my feet. Watch out the board there. So in the end, I managed to get foiling, but if I was learning and I was a total beginner starting from 0, I definitely would not have made it. That's for sure. So then I realized kept tying it in the wrong hole. Here we go. All right, guys, I'm on the 3-5. Now I'm gonna switch. Let's go over. Now I'm gonna switch over to the 4.5 meters and see if I have an easier time getting onto foil learning. At least getting riding. So I'm gonna flip this swing over. All right, gonna get my board. Now we're gonna give it a shot with the 4-5. Already a little bit more power. All right. Little bit easier with the 4-5. Still had to work. Not as much as the 3-5. And I had a little bit more response in the wing itself. So I felt a little bit more feedback
The 3.5 is very light in the hands, while a smaller wing generally is a lot lighter in the hands. So it was interesting just to test it out and to see the difference there. The 4.5 definitely helped. Now I'm gonna go on to the 6. Let's pull this right there. Opa. So now I'm gonna go out on a 6 meter. This in theory is on the larger side of wings. Once you go 6, 7, 8, 9, this is what you would consider a light wind wing. So this should be a lot easier and more powerful than the 2 previous wings I just tried. And most likely for conditions like this, which you can tell in the inside, not that windy, but on the outside, a little bit of wind, this is gonna help me get riding, while on another wing, I might not be able to. And remember, we're testing all of this on a 130 liter board with a 2200 foil, which is considered a beginner equipment, a beginner setup. If I was on an advanced setup, then I would definitely be having a lot of a harder time. So there you go, using the same wing flipping technique, getting onto my board, and let's see if I can get foiling, guys. Hope I don't have to work that hard. All right, I already feel way more power, even though there's no wind at all. You can tell the wing is a lot bigger. Oh God. As you can tell, with even a larger wing, now the wind's totally done. If you look behind us, we look over here real quick. If we look over here, maybe I'm gonna, with the board. If you look over here, the kites have fallen, the wind is over. And this shows the excellent test behind using a larger wing versus a smaller wing, depending on the condition. We are gonna do some other tests and post them up online of stable wind using different wings, just so you can see. But already here is a great test. The wind conditions are changing, getting slowly lighter and lighter. Already you saw with a smaller wing was difficult, medium-sized wing for myself, a little bit more easier, let's say. And then with a larger wing, I was able to get up and riding and stay up and riding for a while. But now there's literally no wind, and there's no way I would have been able to do it with a smaller wing. So that just shows you guys the power of the wing size. And it's important to select the right one for the spot for you. If you have light conditions, you're gonna need to opt in for a bigger wing. If you have medium, normal conditions, probably a mid-sized wing. And then if you live in a very strong place, you're gonna need a smaller wing and smaller gear overall. So here we are, just getting off the water from testing 3 different wing sizes in essentially what was the same wind. It's important that wherever you go in the world, wherever you're riding, that you know what's the wind like, and then you start understanding what that actually means for you. Different places in the world might require different wing sizes. And when you're deciding on your equipment, you can mess around with it. You can put a bigger foil, smaller board, smaller wing. You can go on a bigger wing, smaller foil or smaller board. You want to really find the right balance for you in regards to the wind conditions you have, your riding style, and your level. But basically, playing around with your board size, your foil size, or your wing size is going to be the key to getting the right setup for you wherever you're at. So understanding that and setting yourself up for success is going to be key. In any case, guys, the wind died, and now it's time to rest and enjoy an evening in the Caribbean. Have a great day. It's Charles Osborne here with the International Wingfoiling Organization. You.